Welcome to OhSister, where I unpack my Mormon sister missionary journals 10 years later. Okay, so this week I wanted to talk about mission assignments, which mission you're assigned to and what area within your mission you're assigned to. So instead of talking about like how this actually happens, I want to talk about sort of the mythology around it first of all. Um, because there is just like this whole cultural mythos of like what it means to be a missionary and go on a mission, and like it's all very like coming of age sort of experience, something you watch growing up. You see teenagers in high school growing up and then getting their mission calls, and then they leave and they come back and they're like full grown adults and they're suddenly so responsible and cool. um and I remember kind of like hearing about how like the area that you're called to on your mission, it being like super important for like the rest of your life, kind of like. I even remember hearing stuff about like within like LDS Mormon doctrine, there's the concept of like the plan of salvation, or like that's kind of another word for like your destiny throughout life. And there's this concept of like the pre-earth life, like your time as a spirit before you like are born and you live on earth. And I remember hearing like that there are people who knew that the place that they got called on their mission was like they they like were foreordained in like their pre-earth life as like a spirit, that they were going to go to this specific area and like convert, like find these specific people that they like used to be friends with like before, like back when everyone was just little spirits. Then they come down, they're like, I'll find you, I'll baptize you. um so it's like a really big like weight of like this is really important, and everyone who does this is like almost like heroes. And also it's like important where you go. So I remember thinking sort of just like vaguely when I was younger that like it's sort of direct revelation from like Jesus to the prophet. like like the prophet will like maybe go to the temple and be praying, and like Jesus will show up and say like, hey, this elder needs to go to um whatever place. And then the prophet's like, yes, okay, I'll write this down, I'll send out the letter. um of course that's not actually what happens. So um this could actually still not be exactly how it works, but here's my understanding of on my mission of how my mission assignment happened. So, I filled out like paperwork, right? I said like, okay, here's where I'm from, here's the languages I already speak. Yes, I did seminary in high school. Yes, I'm a good Mormon girl, all these things. You fill out all this paperwork and then you send in your intention to go somewhere. And I think you say whether or not you like want to go to another country. And I think that I said I would go, but I would prefer to stay in the US. I wanted to not have to spend so women and men, or I should say young women and young men, because honestly we're still almost kids at this point. Um, Young men go for 2 years, 24 months, but even though they changed the ages to be shorter, they didn't change the amount of time you go. So young women only went for 18 months. You could get into a big discussion about why that is, but that is the way that it was. And I was already jealous of the short amount of time that I had to direct the entirety of my being to God and His work. I was like, I'm not going to waste any of it, like, not able to do anything because I can't talk to anyone because I'm learning a language. So I wanted to not have to worry about learning another language. And also, I was a little bit worried about like colonialism a little bit. Like, I don't think I would have used that word, but I didn't feel super good about like going to another completely different from my own culture and like telling different people like, "Hey, I know everything better than you because I have this religious knowledge, but also like you need to assimilate to my culture." Like that felt a little weird to me. So, I was fortunate to be called to the South Dakota Rapid City mission. Yeah. So the way that that works, at least my understanding as a missionary, was that there's an apostle who's got, a regular list of all these missionaries who want to go on missions, and they send pictures. So the apostle sits there in front of a computer screen, and the missionaries, their picture shows up and we see their name. And then there's also this list of they see a list of all the missions that are going to be needing missionaries. And so based off of sort of the profile that you send them, like the languages and the visas and citizenships that you have, etc., they look at that and they feel inspired as to what area they should click on for you to be called to. And when I say it that way, like it's easy to say that and say like, that seems a little like corporate and like not very special, like not very mystical. Um, but at the time, I was able to sort of think my way around that by just being like, well, we talk a lot about how, like, God has an orderly house. And, like, of course, there's a system for this. Like, the amount of people who need to be given missions is like a big amount of people regularly. So, like, they don't have time to, like, be going to the temple, like, talking to Jesus every day. We got to just get this done. So, to me, it felt special. It felt like, yes, this is where I need to be going. And like, who knows, there may be someone that I promised before I was born that I would go to their little town in North Dakota and find them and baptize them, right? There is that weight there. So even though I wasn't called to, this fancy place in like Europe, and I wasn't going to be learning a fancy language that, gets you brownie points in Mormon land. In Utah, you get brownie points. But I was like, that's not why I'm doing this. It's because I want to tithe my life. I'm not only going to give them my money, I'm also going to literally give them my life. So that's how the mission is assigned. And then within the mission, of course, they have to break it down into different companionships of missionaries. So there'll be 2, sometimes 3. Sometimes you get situations where there's just one random missionary, so you just stick 3 together. But ideally 2. And it's always, okay, obviously it's transphobic. I don't even have to like, I almost don't have to get that disclaimer, but I'll just say, of course it's transphobic. Of course it's gender binary. And, so yeah, always 2 or 3 elders together, never elders and sisters together, and then 2 or 3 sisters together, right? That's how it works. We have these little pairs of missionaries all around in the mission area, covering the entire area with their proselyting work. And then to have those assignments being done when you go to, at least at mine, at my mission home, the mission president, remember the mission presidency is just this married retired couple, usually more well off, they're usually pretty financially doing well. So at the mission home, the mission president has an office, and there's this big cork board on the wall, and it's got all the pictures of all the missionaries, and there's little pins. So every time it's like the 6-week little, gosh, I can't think of, I feel like the word transfer is coming to mind, but that's when you change. Okay, so there's just little 6-week chunks that it's broken up into. So every 6 weeks, there's going to be new missionaries coming in and old missionaries coming out, and some missionaries got in trouble, so they have to go home early. Some missionaries got sick, so they have to go home early, etc. So there's always this little shuffle happening, right? Um, Ideally, you're not shuffled every 6 weeks because it's hard to like get to know people and like convince them to get baptized if you've only known them for 4 weeks. So we try to keep missionaries in an area for more like a few months at a time at least. But they've got this board with pictures, and then they decide, all right, of all the missionaries we have right now, we've got some new ones coming in. Who are the ones that would be good ones, like who are like trustworthy and responsible? We like want them to train the new missionaries to hopefully continue being responsible and trustworthy, not going and playing video games. And then who are the ones who are maybe struggling, and we need to make sure we don't put them with other people who just want to play video games all the time. And is there someone who's like having, there's like all these things that the mission president's kind of keeping into account. The mission president and his two assistants, the two elders who are put sort of in charge of things as well, they sort of talk through things and shuffle stuff around till they like where things are. Of course, that's also considered to be like inspired and revelatory. I definitely increased my understanding or of how revelation works on my mission, because before my mission I definitely was more of just like, I just like, if I had a calling and I was like supposed to think of like names or something, I would just like pray and sit there and be like, all right, is anything popping into my head? I don't know. But on my mission, there's a lot more of like process. There's a lot of process to things, and it's like, it's kind of, you kind of learn the expectation of the revelation is that as you're going out and like trying things, like whatever kind of works, whatever sticks is like was meant to. So, even though like someone outside of the culture would maybe look at it and say that doesn't seem inspired at all, from my perspective, I was drinking the Kool-Aid and it was delicious, and it was heavenly Kool-Aid. So with that explained, I think we're ready. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in to week 3. Monday, October 13th, 2014. Mission Day 13. I can't believe we left the MTC this morning. We've already learned and grown so much. Our flight to Rapid City was wonderful, and already this mission is so beautiful. We all felt uneasy at the new mission home, as beautiful as it is, but our presidency did a great job at making us feel welcome. The closing devotional was inspiring, and I cried, and I understood a little bit more about why I'm here on a mission. Cassie's influence. Cassie was one of my roommates freshman year at BYU. Okay, quick pause Rapid City, South Dakota mission, right? I didn't change that. That's actually where I was. The mission home, just to explain, so every mission has, right, the mission presidency, so that's like a couple, and it's their church calling to run all the missionaries in a certain geographical area. And we had President and Sister Allen, who we loved, and they had a mission home. It was just like a regular house, but it was, it was a nice house. And it was in Rapid City. So whenever missionaries were coming in from the mission, so like every 6 weeks or something, they would have a get together where all the new missionaries would gather there, and they would get to like have dinner and have a little devotional and kind of get sort of settled in to the area, and then before being sent out to the different assigned areas. Also, the mission home hosts zone meetings, which we'll be talking about probably in like a year when I get into mission leadership. And they also have, when you go home, you stay at the mission home, um, as part of like exiting the mission, flying back home. So, yeah, that's the mission home. And the presidency, when I'm talking about the presidency, it's not the church presidency, which is like the three guys in charge of everything. This presidency is President and Sister Allen. All right. Um, and then I'll also just shout out to Cassie, different name, but she is an awesome roommate. We had a lot of fun, and she was also on, I think at this point she was already on her mission too. So anyway, all right, back to journal. Tonight, most of us newbies are staying in the mission home, but Sister Weaver and I got to go stay with the Johnstons tonight. The Johnstons were a senior missionary couple who lived in Rapid City, and we went. And it was often part of their job was to host um, the younger missionaries when we were in the midst of traveling between areas. And I can't wait to go to bed. We've been up since 3:15 a.m. I'm going to serve in Scranton, North Dakota with Sister Elliot. As soon as I heard, I felt so much peace. It was hard to call home. Good, but I'm glad we don't do that often. All right, so I did change the name of my areas. So they are all still towns in North Dakota and South Dakota, but uh, privacy. But funny enough, there is actually a town named Scranton in North Dakota, and uh, any people who are fans of The Office, that will make them smile. And then Sister Elliot. So I remember sitting in the very plushly, I think the carpet at the mission home was like a cream color. And we were sitting on the living room area, and all these like chairs and couch. And I think I was sitting on the chair so I wouldn't fall asleep on the couch. Cuz we were all so tired after flying. Oh my gosh. And I remember that our airplane, from we like flew from Salt Lake to like some bigger airport like in Wyoming or something, and then we flew from there to Rapid City, and the second airplane we got on, for some reason, was like one of the tiny ones that only had like, I don't know, maybe 20 seats. I'd never been in a tiny plane before, so that was like wild to experience. Um yeah. So what was I saying? I was okay. Yeah, talking about Sister Elliot. So, yes, back we're in the mission home. We're all exhausted. We all have our 3 billion suitcases with us, and we're so tired trying not to fall asleep. And then there's the big moment of revealing what our area we're going to be in and who our trainer is going to be. And this is a big deal. There's this like it's a big deal who your trainer is, because they're like your mission mom or your mission dad, and it's like you like track your genealogy of like, oh, my mission mom was Sister Elliot, and her mission mom was blank and was blank and was blank, and like it's kind of fun, like, oh, well, I have like a good I have like a good bloodline because like my trainer was really good, and she like trained all these people, and they all ended up being really good missionaries. And you know the sort of antics and cultural things that happen in small microcosm groups. And I remember when I was pretty nervous about where I was gonna go and who I was gonna be with. And I do remember like sitting there, and they said I was gonna be with Sister Elliot, and I didn't know who she was, or I didn't know anything about her. But I did feel like this sort of just like soothing, peaceful wave come over me, and I was like, yeah, she's a good person. We're gonna be okay. So that was really nice. It was, you know, nice to not be feeling like worried and stressed about how things were going to go. And fortunately, that was pretty accurate. You know, I was pretty lucky to have her as my trainer. Okay. Tuesday, October 14th, 2014. Mission day 14. I'm here! I'm in Scranton! Sister Elliot and I taught 3 lessons and it went so well. I love these people already. I extended the, quote, soft baptismal invitation to Carl, and he accepted. I don't think that normally happens on the first day, but then my day has been full of tender mercies. I felt so comfortable with Sister Elliot from the first moment I saw her by the gas station. She was so well prepared and explained everything so well that it was easy to pitch in on the lessons. We saw Darla and Jim, new investigators, yay! Carl and Sandra, whom I love so much. Brief disclaimer, the description that I give here in parentheses is uncomfortable for me to read now, but it is what I wrote, so I'm going to read it in full transparency. Here's what I wrote. An old, mentally disabled woman who looks like Aunt Maggie. I guess I'll let you kind of draw your own conclusions about that, but I will say it does, I was, I had just found out my Aunt Maggie had a health scare and I was not sure if she was going to be home when I got home, so I'm sure there was some projecting happening on every elderly woman that I ran into at this point. While I'm paused, there was another thing. Oh yeah, so while I'm paused, I wanted to talk about the whole how they got missionaries from place to place. So in this mission, it's in the United States not super common for missionaries to have cars, and especially like in areas where you don't really need cars. Like, I don't know, if you're like in urban Italy, you probably don't have a car. But in North and South Dakota, you're not getting anywhere without a car, Even if you're in one town, the town's probably really tiny, and you probably are actually covering multiple towns, which in the Scranton area, it turns out we covered like 3 or 4 towns, and we lived in first 2 and then 3 different towns all at the same time. Had lots of home bases. We lived with members in the main town, Scranton, where like the church building was, but then we also had an apartment in Nome, and then we ended up occasionally staying at the like, was it a branch? I feel like it was a branch. The branch president's home in the northern town as well later on. So yeah, it was all a really big area. It was like from the center of our area, we could drive on the highway for like an hour out and we're still in our area. So pretty much every companionship has cars in this mission. So to get missionaries around, we have transfers every 6 weeks, and depending on, not everyone is transferred every 6 weeks, but transfers do happen every 6 weeks, and every 6 weeks there's more new missionaries coming out and missionaries who are done going home. So there's this thing called the transfer train, and it would be usually like zone leaders or the assistants, the APs, the assistants to the president. This is always elders, two elders who it's the highest missionary hierarchy calling. They are like the right hand men of the mission president, and they do a lot of the cool stuff that regular plebeian missionaries can't do. So one of the things is they would drive big vans around, and they were always having to coordinate this crazy transfer all around the mission of driving in this big circle, getting the missionaries from point A to point Z. So, yeah, I spent that day on the mission transfer train and ended up in Scranton with Sister Elliot. Okay. So back to journal. The weather today was beautiful. Scranton is beautiful. The transfer train was very nice, and I got to sit by Sister Smith for one last time. Smiley face. I feel so much love and peace. Oh, in our companionship, we stay in 2 towns. Yeah. Okay, Thursday, October 16th, 2014. Mission Day 16. We were so busy yesterday that I couldn't write in my journal. Also, the Strausses, parentheses, Brother Strauss is the branch's mission coordinator, fed us dinner at the local Mexican restaurant, which was great, except we got home late, so we set the goal to inform our leaders, our feeders, that we have a certain time we have to leave. Okay, I just want to say, um, it's funny looking back at how stressed I would get over the like schedule, following the schedule. Funny, but also, I don't know, like kind of dark comedy. Like, oh my goodness, it's sad to how distressing it was for me if I was just 1 minute late past when I was supposed to be doing something else, or God forbid, like 1 minute late past curfew. I think we were like half an hour late leaving that dinner, so we were home late, and I just felt so anxious and turmoil and freaking out whenever that happened. All right, back to the journal. Sorry, but I just have to write about today now. So we spent a lot of our day, 4+ hours, planning, and it was so much fun. We also called into the bridge call for the 12-week training program check-in, which was enlightening. This morning, I walked with Sister Elliot to the senior folks' home, and we got to listen to the devotional to see if we can formulate a similar one. It was way fun to sing the songs. At dinner today with the Krugers, I felt so much love and appreciation for those members. They work and give so tirelessly to the work of salvation. Brother Kruger gave us a super inspiring, powerful, and uplifting talk about how grateful he is for our work as missionaries. The starfish story never really hit me like it does now. We really are making differences, and while they may seem small to the world's statisticians, they're so worth it for the individuals. Everyone here is so amazing. In comp inventory, Sister Elliot said so many sweet things about me. Smiley face. All right, I gotta gotta talk about that. So, okay, starfish story. If you don't know, it's the like Jesus is walking. Oh gosh, I'm actually probably too far gone from the church to properly remember this story. Context, it's like basically the starfish story. I can't remember if Jesus is a character or not, but I do remember for sure that there's like someone walking down the beach line with someone else, and one person's tossing starfishes into the ocean because they're all washed up and drying out. And when the skeptic is like, "What are you doing? You're never gonna make a difference. Look at this whole beach. Look at this whole beach full of starfish." But then the wise one reaches down, picks one up, and tosses it back in the ocean. They're like, "Made a difference to that one." And that was really, oh man, it definitely felt like we were never gonna have an impact. It felt like us versus the world, and we were never gonna have an impact except for just every one little conversation could make an entire eternal difference in someone's whole eternal life. So yeah, that was the motivation there. Also, I thought it was funny that I talk about the world's statisticians as though they're like actively rooting against the church growing. Likely they just don't even care unless they're Mormon, in which case they're happy about it. But it's funny how much um us versus them there was going on. I mean, not funny, but funny. Also, I talked about bridge call in the 12-week training program. Oh, maybe I'll do that as like a weekly theme at some point, talking about 12-week. But bridge call was like all the new missionaries who were in the 12-week training. Their companion was like an old wizened trained missionary, and they would spend extra time every day going through having like time to do training, to watch the videos, to learn more about how to teach and all that. And we would have a bridge call on okay, it was like 2014, so smartphones were definitely the norm by now, but we still had flip phones, and I had to learn how to text on a flip phone, because I'd never really had to do that before, you know? That was crazy. But we would do bridge calls where we would like call into this group call on a phone, and we had to like not talk over each other. So it was like trying to do a Zoom meeting, but like worse because there was no video. It was just like all these groups of missionaries on these horrible old phones. Um, so I say that it was enlightening, and it's just kind of funny. Yeah. Okay. 10:30 p.m. up 6:15 a.m. So, yeah, I think this is the point where, due to Sister Elliot's influence, but also I'm sure I was excited about it, we started getting up 15 minutes early to exercise. Oh, and I didn't write it, but I remember my first night in this town, because we were in Nome at this point. I was freezing at night, and the apartment like didn't have heating for some reason, and I didn't have like my bedding. I didn't have a blanket. There was some miscommunication about whether we were supposed to bring it with us on our mission or whether we were supposed to ship it. So I was like expecting to have mine shipped, and then they were thinking that we had brought ours in our suitcases. So I ended up um going out and buying like a good coat with Sister Elliot. Um but I just had my sheets that I'd brought, and then I like remember putting my towel and like my coat over me, but it was cold. It was, October in North Dakota, so like already like snowy and cold, and there was no heating. And I think my mom actually told me to go and buy something, but I was so like, no, I can't spend time shopping for a quilt when I'm supposed to be doing my studying. So fortunately, uh, she was very supportive and sent me a quilt, and I think it came not too much later, but oh, that first night was rough. All right. Friday, October 17th, 2014. We just had the best lesson with Alexis and Ashley. They're 8 and 10 years old, respectively, and Sister Kruger came too. Their home is beautifully decorated, modern and homey, with hardwood floors and a red leather couch. Sister Elliot and I got to teach them the plan of salvation, and it went really well. We just practiced one time before going to our service project, nails for the ladies in the retirement home. I got to meet Mabel and Judy today. And then went for it. And you know what? It was fun. Sister Elliot had some great visual aids we used. She filled in all the gaps that I missed. The girls were attentive. Sister Kruger gave excellent thoughts, ... smiley face. I'm so happy. We just had lunch, and since Clive gave us, the sister missionaries, a load of squash for helping with their harvest, I had spaghetti squash with a side of peanut buttered toast that also had homemade peach melba. That jam was from Sister Stanford, I believe. It's so amazing how great the people here are. I'm already wishing I could live here forever. And then I do some dots to indicate passing of time. We tracted for the first time today. It was about as hard as I expected to go and talk to people about the gospel. Self-fulfilling prophecies, am I right? But at the grocery store, after much walking and one contact from a nice man named Stan, on our way back, we ran into Rhonda and Mark, a talkative couple who are very interested in learning. Smiley face. That approach was so much easier and more natural for me, which was hope bringing. That's the end of that day. Briefly talk about tracting and talking to people. So, tracting, I'm not sure if this is like a Mormon word or just like normal American language, but tracting for me was, we have our materials that we're trying to hand out to people, and we're going around finding neighborhoods, and we just walk down the whole neighborhood, knocking on every door, doing our little, "Hi, we're sister missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Are you interested in hearing a message about baptism?" or whatever we had planned. And it was so, I hated it. I knew going into my mission that I was gonna have a hard time talking to people who were not actively coming to me to learn about the gospel. And I knew it was important to go and talk to people, but the whole time I just always felt like really uncomfortable with like bothering people who clearly didn't want to hear about religion. And I think I kind of made it fit with like the missionary perspective. Like I gave myself the excuse that it wasn't bad to feel that way, because instead of focusing on how it was just socially like uncomfortable thing to do, I guess I just focused on like, well, it's like a waste of time because these people don't want to hear from us, and this is like not an effective way to like find people, right? Like most people, when you knock on their door, they don't want to hear it. And that's fair. And I agree with that. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And then I also remember this day we were just there were so many times where we were just out in the dark, in the cold, in the winter, two 19-year-old girls. Maybe one of us was 19 and one of us was 20 or 21, but two young girls walking around in a place we're not from, knocking on doors in sometimes kind of scary neighborhoods, trying to feel like it's not scary and we're totally fine, trying to not get spooked, and trying to just say, we're God's angels are with us, we're gonna be safe. But then also in the back of your mind, knowing all the scary stories you hear of missionaries uh, who like the devil attacks them. And uh, yeah, I remember that was my first like scary night, kind of going around. And like, normally if you're, I don't know, normally if you're like a young woman in the US walking around at night, you've kind of been trained that like you shouldn't like go around and talk to people who like want to be chatty with you. But when you're a missionary, you like are supposed to go talk to them. And if they are like kind of breaking social boundaries that normally like are meant to sort of keep everyone safe. This is hard to. Eh, it's like you talk to those people anyway, so yeah, it gets uncomfortable. It gets uncomfortable for sure, and I'm sure this will come up more to talk about. So yay. October 19th, 2014, Sunday. Uh, but I was actually okay. I was on this day writing about 2 days, so really October 18th, Saturday. I wrote, yesterday we got home late-ish, had to do training, and I didn't have even a minute to write, so I'll put all the important things down now. All right, so here's Saturday's entry. First of all, I just wanted to comment on how inspired President Allen was when he placed me with Sister Elliot. In her words, quote, no other new missionary's training has been split into 2 trainers, unquote. I know that even though I'll have to make the adjustment of having 2 different trainers in my first 12 weeks, as well as being responsible for knowing the area in half that time, it will all be worth the blessings and knowledge I am receiving as Sister Elliot's companion. Under her influence, I've become so open to improvement and facing challenges with excitement, as well as learning from each attempt. I also feel that there's a unique and powerful connection to be had in combining the enthusiasm of my first 6 weeks with the wisdom from the last 6 of Sister Elliot's. One example of a vital lesson I've learned with Sister Elliot as my trainer is the importance of silence and the power we can bring when we get rid of our filler words like, In training yesterday, we role-played a section until I got it down to 2 sentences, which was really powerful. But what brought the biggest improvement was simply remaining quiet as I thought about what to say, instead of taking up all of the quiet time from the Spirit with those meaningless filler words. Now, each time one of us says, the other will say, squash, and hopefully that will help each of us kick the habit. While we were walking around on Friday, it was brought to Sister Elliot's remembrance that there is a cute hometown diner in Nome. She informed me that she loves hometown diners. I agreed with that statement, and we decided to go there for dinner the next day. Parentheses, that actually caught me by surprise. I thought we would be going in a couple weeks, but I didn't say anything to stop our plans. So after helping Sister Hernandez with a family history workshop, we went to Shelley's Diner. And lo and behold, who else would be there but the Stanfords? I hadn't met them yet, but they're a couple who just moved in 2 months ago from Mapleton, town in Utah, because they felt from the Lord they needed to be there in Nome to help set the foundations for the church. The only other members there so far are the Krugers, who also moved over from Scranton just a year ago for the same reason. It was the Stanfords' date night, they explained, but they insisted we share their booth. We had fun talking and chatting, but I think the Lord needed Sister Elliot and I to be there at that time. Their first time to ever eat at that diner too, in fact, as a small tender mercy. The work there isn't progressing very visibly, and we could see how they'd be discouraged at trying to establish the church in a town that not only has strong members of many faiths, but a community full of people who've known each other for generations. Okay, I gotta pause for a minute here because, wow, it's really interesting. Kind of, I think I don't want to use the word audacity too much, but just sort of the audacity of the Mormon mindset, I guess. Like, I don't blame these people now looking back because they're just doing what they thought was right, but the perspective of thinking like, okay, I'm in this special group, I'm in this special chosen religion, and I am special and chosen, and I'm going to uproot my family to this random town in North Dakota, and I'm going to bring salvation to these people. Meanwhile, from a non-Mormon perspective, or an ex-Mormon perspective, it's like these people have been here for, since this town has been around. North Dakota actually has it's like a lot of Lutherans like moved there from like, I don't know, whenever North Dakota was being settled, which, is its own set of colonialism, but here comes the Mormon version where we can't just like let people who are doing well and like they're happy with their own religion, and that's like already a tight-knit community of these people who have been here for generations, like Excuse me, let me come in and try to change you all to have my traditions and my beliefs, and then you'll be happy. Like, if someone did that in the town where I'm from, people would be so offended and so mad. Um, and it's interesting that that happens all over the world with Mormon missionaries and Mormon members, but we don't see it the same way. Or at least at that point, I didn't. Yeah. Okay, so back to journal. Last night I was led by the Spirit to know that the Lord calls some of his strongest people to be apostles, and he also calls some of his strongest people and best missionaries to settle the church. Fun fact, this mission is the last in the US to have branches and groups, not wards. It's so humbling to me to watch these couples work so hard in the work of the Lord. They sacrificed a Utah Mormon's life, close to family and Temple Square and Olive Garden. No joke, that is what I put in there. Turns out Olive Garden is a national chain, and there's not a lot of Olive Gardens in North Dakota, but it is within driving distance. That's kind of funny. I already love them so much, and they've already done so much for me that I want to work as hard as I can and let them see that their efforts are not in vain. I'm really glad Sister Elliot and I got to help out Sister Kruger a bit through the remodeling of their home by sweeping the floor. It wasn't much, but what with the gnome group meeting in their home for the first time for church today, and Sister Kruger's difficulty walking, it felt good. They actually came with us after the 3-hour family history class to our lesson at Mark and Rhonda's home. When this couple and their friend, Howard, turned out to be more talkative and distracted than we could handle, Sister Kruger, the most quiet, gentle, timid woman I have ever met, this next part is underlined, interrupted the lesson and invited us all to meet in her home so there wouldn't be distractions. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? These people are giving their whole lives to the Lord to bring those he has prepared to the truth. I hope to be like them someday. To be able to sacrifice so much is such a sign of complete devotion. And written at the bottom of the page, I've got this quote. The Lord calls some people to be apostles and some to be Krugers. There are a lot of things I could point out about this, but I'm noticing that the last episode went for really long. I'm trying to not have this one be that long, so I will just say, isn't it interesting that the highest compliment I could give to Sister Kruger in my journal was that she was quiet, gentle, and timid. And I think that says something, too, about probably what I was starting to expect in my life and marriage and role as a woman. Sunday, October 19th, 2014. Well, my first Sunday in the field. I was expecting to be the busy missionary, not the napping teen. And guess what? No naps. Smiley face. It was great, though. I was able to apply a lot that I learned in the MTC and from General Conference to sacrament meeting. And for the first time, I began to really understand and see the sacrament as an ordinance for renewing covenants. I'll cut in to say what I mean to that is I was not only taking prolific notes and journaling at home, but anytime I had a meeting, I also had this notebook where I would write down all my study stuff. So I was writing down all the connections and things that I made from past stuff to what I was hearing in sacrament meetings. So I was just always like taking down all these crazy notes. Okay, back to journal. After the block was over, block meaning the church services, we all crowded to the potluck. It was awesome. I believe there was even a type of Jell-O salad. For sure, there was cabbage salad with peanuts, a really great apple tray with pumpkin nutmeg dip, a stew like crock pot curry, and delicious cakes. It was hard to hold myself back from a second heaping, but I'm glad I held myself back because 2 hours later, at 4 o'clock, we met with Darla and Jim for dinner and a lesson. The meal started well. A small salad with a delicious array of toppings, a thin crust Papa Murphy's pizza. But Darla, bless her heart, is such a generous host that we each received a brownie that was literally a quarter of a pan full, along with ice cream. Sister Elliot and I, we tried. Our efforts were valiant, but in the end, about a third of our dishes were thrown away, and we were struggling to stay conscious due to the incoming #cake coma. Other than that, our lesson went very well, and Jim committed himself to read and pray about the Book of Mormon. Yeah, yeah. There's there's this cultural thing of, like, missionaries are seen as, going out and giving everything, and people want to support us and make sure that we're well fed, and, we miss our families, and we're giving everything to God. So what do they want to do to, like, take care of us and, like, receive blessings in return? Is they want to feed us, right? And that's all. It was really nice to have so much, like, communal support in the areas. Like, it's hard if you go to an area and the members, like, don't want to feed you, because that means they don't trust you and they hate missionaries, and or at least that's what we believed. So it was really nice when people wanted to feed us, and it was really cool that Darla wanted to have us over, because she wasn't even a member. She's just someone we were teaching. And so she didn't, like, have to sign up to feed us. She just did, because she was really sweet. But somehow she also picked up on the, like, we're gonna make you eat more than is physically possible to show how appreciative we are of you. And, like, you can't say no because you want to be grateful for their generosity. And it was, family size pan of brownies. She cut it into quarters. She scooped it up with a giant. Oh, it was so much food. It was so much brownie. This happens to me a few more times on my mission, but this was a very memorable first time. And that's my third week as a Mormon sister missionary. Make sure to follow this podcast if you want to continue following my story. Ratings are appreciated, and if you'd like to financially support this or my other creative work, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Ally Christiansen. I hope you have a great week, and if you want my advice, just remember that you can love others best when you love yourself first. Bye!